Hey y'all, welcome back to Movement Link. So I've got a big topic today. This is something that a lot of newish people, you don't have to be new to exercising, but new people to a lot of the barbell exercises we do, like the thruster, any shoulder to overhead, push, press, jerk, those things, and even cleans. We see a lot of people deal with wrist pain. So first of all, there's a lot of reasons we can deal with wrist pain. A lot of it stems from posture, what we're doing in the shoulder, but let's assume that our mobility and everything is good and we're still experiencing that wrist pain. And a lot of it is just technique related. So a couple mistakes that we commonly see is with the barbell on things like the thruster, the push press, the jerk. These are the exercises we see the wrist pain on a lot. What we see is when we're in this front rack position, we see the newer people not use their front rack position. A lot of times you'll see that barbell lower than their collarbone, and you can just see what my wrists look like in this position. All of the weight is going through that wrist joint. So then we see them get it up here a little bit, but their elbows are still really low, putting a lot of that weight. So we just want to be able for you, and it's going to look a little different for everybody, but we want you to be able to get into a position where there's no weight in your wrists. So your arms and your wrists can just be relaxed with no extra weight in it. So if I can get there, now there's no stress. And it's not until my elbows drop now the stress goes into the wrist. So that's the first thing. Are we utilizing that front rack correctly? So the next piece that people start doing is we start getting better at the front rack, but then as we're coming up to drive from the hips, we see people start dropping into this position. So by the time they drive with their hips, the barbell's already in their hand. So what we need to keep in mind is that almost everything, if we're swinging a golf club, swinging a baseball bat, almost everything, power is generated through the hip. And we see that over and over and over and over again with the compound movements we do here in the gym. And so what we want to think about is if that bar is sitting on me, so like I showed you without my hands, if that bar is sitting on me, then when I drive with the hips, all of that power goes straight from my legs and hips straight into the bar. But if I have that bar and I'm holding it in my arms, now all of that power goes through my shoulder, through my elbow, through my wrist, and then into the bar. So by the time I drive up, if I've already pressed it a little bit, all of that power I'm getting out of my legs and hips has to travel through all of this. And so the wrist ends up taking a big brunt of it because usually we're in a position down here that looks like this. So another thing to look for is make sure that we've got that bar there. We drive it up hard off of that position, and then only after we've driven hard with the hips will we press. So really what that looks like, I'll show you both here, is the good way. I'm going to stay in that front rack position, drive it up off my front rack and then press it. The other way, on the way up, I kind of rotate that bar into my hands, and all that power doesn't go straight into the bar. It's got to go through my jiggly little arms. So one more thing, especially when we're talking about thrusters now, if we look at what a front squat looks like, I've got my front rack position, but if I maintain this position here, okay, the bar's sitting right on me, triceps need to be parallel with the ground, and if I maintain this position and don't do anything at the shoulder, as I squat and my torso goes forward, my elbows drop. They don't drop relative to my torso, they drop relative to the ground, and gravity is really the thing that matters here. So if I'm squatting and I don't do anything at the shoulder, I end up with this low elbow position, and that low elbow position is inevitably going to put all that weight into your wrists. So what we need to do here is as we squat, we need to drive those elbows up. So as I'm here, if I don't do anything with my shoulders, when I stand back up, my elbows are high. So as I squat, I actually need to do this and raise my elbows up. That way I keep the triceps parallel with the ground and I can keep that barbell sitting on my front rack position. So people who are squatting and their elbows dive down, that's going to put a lot of strain on the wrists too. So we talked about mobility possibly being a factor, and especially in towards the wrist and the shoulder, and if we're not able to get into this position, it can cause problems. But also, it's a tough position, so think about your squat. If we don't have the ankle or hip mobility, then what's gonna happen is as we squat, I'll mimic tight ankles. I get stuck in a position where I'm bent over. No amount of driving those things up is gonna be able to get that barbell off of my wrist. So a lot of times, especially in the beginning, just an immature squat and someone who hasn't developed that ability to get upright in their squat yet, and it'll come, but someone who hasn't developed that ability might just get jammed hard into the wrist. So if we are someone who's dealing with these mobility issues and it's really making those front rack positions difficult, what I recommend is just using dumbbells. Dumbbells can be a great way. You hold them like this and rest one head of the dumbbell on you, and it can be a great way to drive and fight for that position, but you can get that wrist straight up and down much, much easier. Where if we try and do that position with the barbell, we squat down and we can hit our legs, and that can actually break a forearm. So those dumbbells make it a little bit easier to keep those elbows up. So just some things to think about. Wrist pain could be a wrist issue, but most of the time we see immature squat and immature technique causing the wrist pain. So we always want to go root cause, because if we blame it on bad wrists, what you're going to do is grab wrist wraps, okay, and that's like putting a Band-Aid on something that doesn't need a Band-Aid, and so then you never fix the thing that's actually causing the problem. So dig into it, see which of those things might be causing the problem. Talk to y'all soon.